2022. No, I'm not high. No, I'm not, something that I ate got to my brain. No. But 2022 basically is the year where things changed in North America. I say that because you can now say that the U.S. has passed Mexico. Does it mean that it passed in the league? Not necessarily. Liga MX still has its hold to a certain extent. But what the U.S. has been able to do, in combination with what Mexico has failed to do because of complacency, because of money coming in, ends up being the major issue here. Let's be completely real. Yes, the U.S. have been doing a lot of things good. And just like I've said always, and I always will be saying it, they've done a lot of things that aren't so good and aren't so positive and aren't so great. But they've done some good things. The problem with Mexico is the conformity. It's a bit of thinking something that they truly aren't. And you see it in the media. Now, this has nothing to do with the fans. The fans, they consume it and they accept it or they deny it depending on who they are. That's an individual decision that the consumer of said content ends up making. That's what my problem is, especially with Mexico, is the people that create the content at times, in some cases. Making things sound like something they really aren't. Now, as I've said before, and I said it before with Boca, it's business to fail. It's business not to do well. The business is always in the medicine. It's never in the cure. Always remember that when you're talking about football in North America. The business is always in the medicine. It's never in the cure. If Mexico or the U.S. were World Cup winners, were consistent contenders to win a World Cup, would they need to have people from outside to bring new ideas? No. You wouldn't need the Dutch and the English and the Germans and the South Americans and the Argentines and Brazilians. You don't need those guys to come in and sell you something. Here in the United States, you don't need someone from abroad to sell you the elite or the premier or the super duper travel program to be able to have your kid get in. You don't need that in a country that is the best footballing country in the world, if that were the case. The thing with Mexico is that money tends to hide a lot of things. Money poorly invested and poorly distributed and having people that have money coming into football and don't know what to do end up being part of the problem. Add to that the interests that are in Mexican football. By the way, let me ask this. Whenever you're dealing with someone when it comes to Mexican football, ask, hey, how is that whole issue with multi-properties going? You know that it's illegal, right? According to FIFA. Yet Mexico, still there. The thing is that on top of having money and throwing money at problems in Mexico, Mexico is big money. Therefore, big money is earned. If it were any other country that has done what Mexico's done, now, whether you think that the chance that they have is good, wrong. It's not, it's irrelevant. It's something that's being threatened. Yet, you have certain countries that have done certain things and their FAs have been suspended for years. Mexico's done this. They're hosting the World Cup in 2026. And this has nothing to do with the fans. This has everything to do with the FA and how football is run in Mexico and in this region. Yeah, I'm going to get criticism for it. Absolutely. But you start seeing sometimes the reality, and when the reality is there, you can no longer kind of keep quiet. Or not keep quiet. You can't just not say something. And I've said things before. Mind you, when I worked at a network, I would go on radio and say, hey, there's a big problem here. The thing is that many in Mexico think they're world champions. They think they're Germany. Many do, many don't. And let's keep that straight. The problem is that when you start watching their networks, you start hearing, oh, so-and-so's the problem. Tata Martino's the problem. No, it's not. No, he isn't. He's doing what he can with what he has. It's the people that have developed those players that don't go and look for players to develop elsewhere. And it's very lazy. The scouting is lazy. Some of these players don't get chances at their clubs, therefore they get very little playing time. Mexican football right now is depending on an 18-year-old that has not played for Arsenal's first team. That is their savior. So let's understand that. Meanwhile, on the other end, it's slow, it's coming, it's hitting, it's missing. There's players that have their ups, there's players that have their downs, there's players that play very well, there's players that are injured, there's players that are playing poorly. But you have them in the mix. And now, that's the case with the U.S. You have all these players playing in Europe. And yes, it's easier for an American player, for the most part, to be able to get a chance to play in Europe because many of them can get European passports. Many are European citizens. Many were born and raised in Europe. Yeah, that's easy compared to Mexican players. But there's also a certain comfort about playing in Mexico. People don't say that, especially in both Spanish and English media. They say it more in Spanish. They don't say it more in the English. The amount of money that's paid in Liga MX, it offers a certain comfort. You get paid very well, competitively compared to some of the European. So why the hell would you want to leave? Think about that. If MLS players were being paid the same amount that Liga MX players, on average I'm talking about, why would you want to leave the United States? Honestly. Why would you want to leave the U.S.? I wouldn't. I mean, I'm talking about if from an economic standpoint. I'm not talking from a competitive standpoint. Because that's a very subjective issue. Because each one, maybe my goal is to play in Major League Soccer, and that's it. Or maybe the person next to me, his goal is to go play in Europe. And the person after, hey, no, my goal is to go play for Real Madrid. So each one has a different thing. But going back to the point, Mexico's very comfortable. On top, it's the food, it's the language. It's a wonderful country. You're with your family. You're in the comfort of your family. You can go and have a good time. You're treated as a superstar. You're a rock star if you're a star of Chivas or America. Go to Europe. Nobody cares. I play for Chivas or... What's that? Or... Okay. And then you have to get adapted to a different environment, a bit of weather, a different culture all of itself, and you're earning just as much. You're like, what the hell am I doing here? So there's a certain aspect to the comfort, but a lot of it, like I said, it goes back to the administrative levels of the FMF and them not doing things right And it ends up leading to Mexico not going to the Olympics, not going to the Under-20 World Cup, not doing all these things that Mexico in the last few years have been doing on a perennial basis. Right now, the women's program is about to get knocked out, or coming very close to getting knocked out from World Cup competition, or Olympic competition, I say, on the women's side. So Mexico, it's a combination of the U.S. doing things very well, or doing things better and improving upon them, compared to Mexican football not doing anything right. Again, on Mexican television, they're going to blame Tata Martino for everything from now until the end of the World Cup and until he leaves. But it's not Tata Martino's fault. This is what he has, like I said before. When you're given tools and that's all you have to work with, that's all you have to work with. You know, you can be resourceful in how you use it. And of course, the players that they want to bring in, are they that much of an improvement? No, they're not. Let's be completely real about it. It's not like Tata Martino hasn't seen these players before and all of a sudden he's just missing the next reincarnation of Cristiano Ronaldo as a forward. You know, he doesn't have the reincarnation of Hugo Sanchez walking in the door and really getting ready to amaze him. You don't have a number 10 and say, hey, this is the next Leo Messi, and Tata Martino just doesn't like him. No. That's the biggest problem that we're seeing with Mexico. They're not doing anything right at the administrative level. Like I said, in the U.S., they are. And people say, oh, but no, it's that my position never changed. When people do things right, you have to say them. When people do things wrong, you have to say them. That's basically it. It's a very simple profession. It's a very simple thing to do. The problem is that there's people that have trouble, that you end up putting yourself in a position where if you do end up criticizing someone, then you end up having to backtrack, or you have to end up looking at someone in the face, or you have to end up going and saying things to people where you end up in a bit of a dissonance. But if you simplify it and you say, hey, the U.S. men's national team program has done this well. The U.S. men's national team program has done this wrong. This is what they're doing wrong. This is what they're doing good. This is what they're doing right. And there's a lot of things that they're doing right. There's a lot of things that they're doing badly, and they will always be doing it badly because of a sense of entitlement or a sense of them thinking that they know what's going on, and maybe what they've been able to get from advisors. And maybe it's not good advice. And maybe they're not good advisors. And maybe the ones that are doing the right things are the good advisors or the good consultants. Meanwhile, Mexican football just has it's completely rudderless right now because the leadership, well, if you look at the Mexican League, you have someone that doesn't know football. The man that runs Liga MX has no clue about football. But that's just basically how things are run in Mexico. Look, I'm just trying to be real. People might not like what I say. They usually don't like what I say. But that doesn't matter because it's not about you liking what I say. It's about me telling you what actually is going on and the reality of it all. That to me is much more important and much more valuable than anything that makes you feel good. Now, if it makes you feel good, even better. That way we can be friends.